Hey, welcome, leaders and coaches. Steve Schleter with Never Ending Referrals. Hey, I'm here to talk to you about, well, the tale of two cities. And we've talked about interest rates, inflation, all kinds of market stat and MOFIR conversations to help our agents navigate the conversations with the consumer today. Today, we're going to talk about why right now we're in a time called the safe zone in many of our markets. And we're going to explain just what the safe zone is, and yet we're going to start with the conversation of, are we overvalued? This is the sometimes challenging conversation for some of our agents because nobody has a crystal ball. And yet we're going to look at two cities, San Antonio, Texas, and then just north of Austin, Williamson County. And in San Antonio, we believe we are actually absolutely safe to be in the market right now. Our market is very near bottom, if not at bottom, swinging up. And then we're going to look at Williamson County, Texas, which is north of Austin, and how we actually still are overvalued there. And yet why now is the time to jump into the market, because it is in the safe zone. And I'm going to start with our consumer guide. Let's start with city number one, San Antonio, where we're clearly very much near the bottom. We don't believe we're overvalued really at all. And what that conversation looks like and how we back it up with information we've put into a consulting guide for our agents. And so let's take a look at this. And I'm going to pull up the guide, and we'll start here on the page that I've got on the overvalued conversation. So we've got a 9-page consulting guide. And of course, we made use of the great resources that Keller Williams provide us with. This comes from the vision speech. So it looks like we ended the year about 386,000 median price nationally, and projected to kind of stay about level going into 2023. And yet, in this case of a market, we're saying we're not overvalued. We're going to use this long-term trend line that says we should be at 357 come the end of 2023, based upon a 4% annual appreciation rate. Now, that being said, we're going to be supposed to be at 357 at the end of 2023 projected. We make the case that because we're at 305. Well, of course, we're not the nation, we're a city, and real estate is local. And yet we're making the justification that where we are today is we're likely moving towards the national trend. So we're a great value. And we make the case down here. It would be reasonable to believe that San Antonio may continue to move toward the national trend line shown in gold, given the current migration trends and undersupply of housing. Now, knowing all these conversations that we have to have, well, all that's built into the consumer guide. So we go up here. We addressed the undersupply of housing. We addressed the migration. We show the evidence. The census data said San Antonio, the biggest numeric population growth, more than Phoenix, Fort Worth, Port St. Lucie, North Las Vegas. One of our suburbs was one of the top 5 in growth. So we put all this in here to help our consumer understand that this is real. And then we can go into the actual data that we are now about, 8% off peak. Our inventory levels are in line with where we were in a normal market, which was still a normal seller's market. And yet we're just not in the crazy times that we were in, which is what drove the peak. And we're back into that 3-month supply versus 1-month supply of inventory. So that's the tale of one city. And let's talk about this thing called the safe zone. So this is actually page 172 of the shift book. And we talk about markets just ebb and flow, right? And they go through cycles. And the challenge is in timing the cycle or timing the market. It's difficult to time the market because the realization that the market has changed doesn't often occur clearly until after the changes occur. That's what this gold blob here represents. It's the point of realization that things have changed. So when a market is peaked up and it's high, well, we call that the unlucky zone. You never quite know where the peak is. And then when it starts to come down, we don't really know that we're fully in that mode until it happens. And then you enter at some point what we call the safe zone. Okay, it's the market has given back some of what it gained. It's not, it's reasonably stable. And yet I could wait until we hit bottom And yet, do you really know when you hit bottom? You don't typically know you've hit bottom until it's made the turn and it's back on its way up. And just as you experienced, if you've been through multiple shifts, you know that every major shift swings violently in both directions when it happens. And when this shift becomes back up, we're going to be in many of our markets low inventory again, a lot of competition for listings. We still have a national critical housing shortage. And when it swings back, it's going to swing back likely very violently in some of our markets. And so right now, we're in the safe zone clearly in San Antonio. We might even be approaching the lucky zone, and yet we won't know that for a while. And so this conversation backed up with data can be extremely powerful. But let's go to another market, and that's a market, Williamson County, Texas, where we are overvalued. And here's the thing: we had a median price peak of 510 in April. We've given back $100,000 of that. As of February, we're at 410. That's 19.6% off a peak. Now, I can go to news articles like Goldman Sachs and others who said the Austin market, is going to see like a 30% drop. So that would say we've got another 10% to go. And yet we're the suburbs, and we're not quite as nuts as Austin was. And I went and I said, okay, let me make a hypothesis so I can help the consumer rationalize. Because when you have these crazy gains, what would have been under just a really good hot market? Because we were going to have the job growth, the employers coming in, all that was going to happen. And then you had COVID thrown on top of it, and you had all these people who moved to different parts of the world or desire housing. And so I did a hypothesis, and the orange box said, what if we had just gone up from 2020, 8.5% a year till 2024, and this is January, by the way, is that's depicted here. And then we started to increase then 5% a year beyond that. Well, that would mean by 2025, January, less than 2 years away, we'd be at 418, 385 in less than a year. And so I'm going to predict that actually our bottom is probably somewhere, in the 375 to 365 range, if we go below 400 at all, because inventory has moderated, and I can go to that data to show that as well. And so now it's real easy for me to come back and say, we've entered the safe zone, not the twilight zone, the safe zone. And now that we're in the safe zone, now where are we in the safe zone? Are we here? Are we, here? And nobody has a crystal ball. And yet we know that if we wait until we're clear that we've hit bottom, we will have already swung the other way. And the issues you'll have to deal with there, less choices, all of that may make it not worth waiting for. So that being said, tale of two cities. Use the safe zone conversation and back it up with data. Go in there and demonstrate where your inventory levels are, what's happening in demand, and make some predictions. And always use the statement, of course, there's no crystal ball. And yet, when you look at the data and you look at it with them, likely they will draw the same conclusions. And you've always tell them, I share this with you so that you can be educated. There's no crystal ball. And yet to me, this seems clearly like an opportunity right now that may go away. This may be a short window of opportunity. I don't know if it ends in 6 months, 8 months, or 15 months, but we're clearly in the safe zone. And get them and say, by the way, do you draw that same conclusion? And ask them the question. And it's important because who says it matters. And if when they say it, then you know where you stand, and they have the belief that they share that belief. And now you can help move them forward. You have them off the fence, and we can go play in the safe zone and take advantage of the windows of opportunity in our market right now. Trust, does that help? That's helpful. Take care. Oh, and by the way, go out to mapscoaching.com and check us out on Never Ending Referrals. If you like these conversations, you want to find out how to build a more robust database, the messages, the MOFIRS, the strategies to get the highest return that you absolutely can. We'd love to have you on part of our Never Ending Referrals community. It's just $39 a month. You can go to neverendingreferrals.com. As leaders, you can bring Never Ending Referrals into your market center in a facilitator-led program for 6 weeks. If you're interested in market center version, call us at, reach out to us, info at neverendingreferrals.com. Take care, folks.